Welcome guys to the second video of the Trading Psychology and Mindset series. In the last video, we established the fundamental truths of the market. We understood what the market ecosystem was, how the news affects it. We understood that the market by itself is not biased or judgmental towards a particular set of group of people or events or anything else, which is why the market can never be wrong. It's only a perception of it or a view of it that can be wrong. We figured out that markets are infinite. They have always existed and they will continue to exist. So it's on us to choose when to participate. And we also figured out that markets are a complex system, so it's hard to understand exact causal relationships in them. So those were the facts of the market. That's the basic framework. In this video, we'll bring back the focus to us on how we should participate in the markets and the mindset we should carry in order to be successful in this game called trading, or any game of chance for that matter. So, for that purpose, I'm going to use the example of a coin toss while making an analogy or comparison to trading, because it would be easier to understand. We already explained that markets are a complex system, so there can be a lot of factors going on, right? It's not a complete information game, which can be hard for people to understand because there's some information that's hidden. For a simple game of chance like a coin toss or a dice, it's a complete information game because we know of all the possibilities that are available and we can define exact probabilities to them. So for this lesson, I will try and use the coin toss analogy just so you guys can have an idea of how games of chance work. So let's say we have a loaded coin. We know this coin comes 70% of the times heads and 30% of the times it comes out as tails. If you pick correctly for the coin flip, you double the amount you bet. And if you pick wrongly, you will lose your bet. So intuitively, you know that if you keep playing this game over the long run, you will be making money because you can simply pick heads every time. And over 100 bets, right, you should win at least 70% of the time. Assuming perfect distribution of scenarios. Maybe there's a slight variation, but let's assume a perfect scenario in this case. So in this case, you already know you have an edge in picking heads, and that's your strategy. That's it. That's all you're going to do. You're going to pick heads. Now, one thing you realize is that for any one toss, you can get a tail. So if you're smart and you have $100 to begin with, you will not bet the entire $100 on one toss, because you know that there's a 30% chance you lose everything. Then you cannot play this game and you cannot work out the edge you have. Edge is the advantage you have by knowing that it's a loaded coin and 70% of the time comes out heads. What your ideal scenario would be to play as long as possible while winning. So this thing is intuitive to you. This thing you realize when you know you have an edge, when you know you have a system, when you know over the long run you're making money, you will realize that it's not smart to bet all your amount at once. And yet many of the newbies or amateurs in the markets do exactly that. They will come out, they know that a strategy has an edge, has an advantage over the long run, but they get greedy. They think every trade will be a winner, and they try and bet big. And any adverse event, any adverse outcome, in this case a tails for example, will make them lose their entire money, and they cannot take advantage of the edge that they had in the markets or in their system. So some things to understand. Each event, right, each coin toss that we had in the coin toss example would be independent. Just because the last toss was a tails does not change the odds of this toss that I'm going to play next. The odds stay the same. 70% chance it will be heads, 30% chance it will be tails. So each coin toss is a standalone event, and the result of one toss does not have any bearing on the result of the next toss. Same goes for trading. Let's say you found a system, you found a setup that over a long number of trades, right, has a 70% win rate, and the risk reward is 2-to-1, right? That's an amazing system, right? Like you would kill for a system like that. So you have a 70% win rate. Even if you have the risk reward 1-to-1, that's fine. It's still a system that should make money over the long run. In this case, you have to realize that one trade does not have any bearing on the result of the next trade. I'll give an example, right? I just chose a bull flag breakout. I'm not saying it's a profitable system. Maybe someone found a bull flag setup that has a high win rate and risk to reward, right? It has a positive expectancy over the long run, aka over the long run, if you keep playing it, you will make money. Now, if you took a bull flag breakout of Tesla and it failed, that does not affect the result of the next bull flag breakout on Apple, right? Each trade is standalone in that system. But most newbies, most amateurs, what they do is after every single time they lose, they're like, oh, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe my system is not perfect. I need to make some changes. And yes, no system is perfect. No system will have a 100% win rate. But after every loss, if you start to doubt your system, you will not be able to take advantage of a system that's proven to be making money, right? After every coin toss, let's say you lose, you pick heads every time, and in 2 in a row, you lost because it was tails. Does that mean you flip to tails even though you know it's a loaded coin, which should come heads 70% of the time? No. You should stick with heads. That's your edge. That's your advantage. So realize that every trade you take is standalone. It's an independent event. How it works out or doesn't work out does not affect the probabilities of the system and of the next trade that you will take. So what that means is the idea of being right or wrong on a trade is asinine. There is no right or wrong. It's a game of probabilities. What you have in your control is when to enter and exit the trade. What happens to the trade is not in your control. There can be millions of reasons why a trade doesn't work out. We discussed it in the last video. It's a complex system. Right? In a complex system, to find exact causality is very difficult. And once you put on the trade, and maybe it was the perfect setup, there could be a million reasons the trade didn't work out. Maybe Powell comes out and says some dumb stuff. It can ruin the best technical setups we have. And our strategies account for that because none of them have a 100% success rate. Let's say if a strategy, the coin toss one, has a 70% success rate, for 30% of the cases, it won't work out, and that's fine. Does that mean you picking heads every single time is wrong? If you make a mistake in one coin toss, does that make you right or wrong? Should that affect your reputation, your name? No, because it's a game of chance. Over 100, over 1,000 trades, you're bound to make money. So one trade working out or not working out does not have to be defined as right or wrong. It's just an event. It is just one occurrence of something that happened. It does not define you as a person. It does not define you as a reputation. Your name is not at stake there. There is no idea of right or wrong in that case. It's a game of probability. You have a setup that works. You have a system that works. You enter. If it works, great. You move to the next one. If it doesn't, great. You move to the next one. That's how it is. So as men, we always have this idea that things are right or wrong, and we have to get this out of our head. That's not how trading works. A trade occurrence does not define you. And just remember that. So that's where the idea comes out of small versus large sample size. As I mentioned, over 1,000 coin tosses, for example, you will see the distribution pretty much what you expected. Around somewhere near 700 heads and somewhere near 300 tails. But if you have 5 coin tosses, right, maybe you see a large deviation from that 70% heads, 30% tails expectation that we had. That's because over a large sample size, over multiple occurrences, the numbers start to converge with the probabilities that we had. Over a small sample size, over a small number of occurrences, the probabilities do not converge. The observed probability, right, the observation does not have to converge with the theoretical probability. So the only way to judge your system or judge your strategy is to have tested it out over a large number of trades. You can do that when you back test, right? If you look at historical data and you see how many times it works out. You can always do it in multiple ways. Let's say you're creating a system, so you choose a certain time frame. You create a system based on that, right? That's your data on which you create the system. Then you can test it on data that's outside that time frame. So let's say you create a system on the markets from 2014 to 2020. Now, to test out that system on a different sample of data, you can go test it out on 2008 to 2011 markets, and then go test it out on 2001 to 2005 markets. And that way you will start to see if your system actually has an edge, or was it based on the data you were using. And the only way to establish the edge of your system is to have tested it out over a long number of trades, so you can be confident in it and you can assign probabilities to your success rate as well as the risk reward ratios. And then the final thing that we need to understand in every single trade we take is there are only very few things we control. We control 2 things: when to enter or exit a trade and the amount of risk we can take per trade. So the when will depend on your setup you have, and the amount of risk will depend on this idea that you will need to take a lot of trades in order for your edge or your advantage to manifest. And if you risk too much, you might not be able to see your advantage manifest because you will run out of money before your edge comes in play. In the coin toss example, if you put your entire bet on the first toss and then you lose, well, you cannot play anymore. You ruined an advantage there. But if you bet small amounts and can play over a long period of time, you are bound to make money. There's no helping it. So those are the things in our control. What you can't control is what Powell is going to say, right? What the news is going to come out. If there's some market makers manipulating something, what the economy is doing. All of those things are not in your control, and they should not play a role on you taking a trade. If you have a system that works, where you have a defined edge, then all you have to do is enter and exit based on it and risk such that you can play long enough for your edge to manifest. And those are the things that you have to keep paying attention to. You have to keep reminding yourself. Anyone who survives in this game long enough is bound to make money. Your first goal is survival, protection of your capital. Your second goal is to increase your capital. Those who risk too much always go out first. There's an old saying in the markets: there are many old traders and there are many bold traders. But it's very hard to find a bold, old trader. Most of the traders who are cowboys, who are maniacs, they do not last in the markets. So always risk such that your advantage can manifest and you can play for a long time. With all these thoughts, I will finish off this video and we'll continue the psychology and mindset series next time.